Oh yeah. That's my rocket ignition liftoff sound because this is above the break, and we're doing something a little bit different this season. We're gonna be doing Rockets only podcasts for all you Rockets fans. As always, this is Nevin Brown, and I'm joined by the real Rockets fan, the man who's wearing a beautiful retro, not even retro, it's just old, it's antique. It is not none of this nostalgic, let's make money today bullshit. It is from the period of time that it's supposed to be from. This is the man, the myth, the legend.
James Old Hat Piercy.
Yeah, you missed.
They call me the Old Hat.
That's. I feel like there's like a 19th century baseball player whose name is just Old Hat, whatever their last name is. Because back in the day, like people like would just go by these crazy nicknames. Like I think there was like a pitcher for a long time named like Tin Cup.
Yeah. I believe it. Yeah.
So there's probably like
Old times are funny, man. They're
oh,
just people were funny up until recently.
honestly, they should really bring that back. Like why the fuck should we refer to people by their names? Um,
Yeah.
and whatever. Let's not get dragged in the weeds because old baseball players have some amazing, amazing names, especially like the guys who are like Five Finger Jack, and you're like, does he just have five fingers, or like he has five fingers on one hand? Who knows?
That's not notable.
Yeah, well, he's the five fingers. Maybe he's doing something with some people with five fingers that we should not be talking about. Maybe if it's
Oh
five
no.
fingers. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay. So if you're a Rockets fan, you know the deal. The Rockets are 0-3 to start the season. They have played three playoff teams. Tonight, since we're recording on Monday, October 24th, tonight they play the Western Conference juggernauts, the Utah Jazz, who have started the season 3-0, and they have beaten three playoff teams. And honestly, they beat three teams that people are like quite high on. I mean, I think three teams that a lot of people think could win 50 games and three teams that might win 50 games this year. So, James, how scared are you of the Utah Jazz? And should Vernon Maxwell do they need Vernon Maxwell to come out and save the day?
Yeah, we need Mad Dog. Yeah, I'm not scared because I think this whole season is house money, so I'm not scared of anything. Right? Bring on the losses, bring on the wins. It really doesn't matter this year.
All right, I love it. Okay, so we're gonna have some topics of conversation to get into, but before that, we're just gonna talk about the first three games, what we've seen so far, what we've liked, what we don't like, and there might be some overlap with our topics, but that's fine. So, James, what has been the like you? I know for sure you've watched two games. I have unfortunately watched all three, which is been fantastic, fantastic viewing. The one you missed, James missed the Bucks game, was the one to miss. It was really the one to
Yeah, and
miss.
I sensed that, so I didn't mind making plans with my girlfriend. I was like, yeah, no, nothing significant happening that night, so
Oh
let's
yeah,
hang
the
out.
Rockets just have to play Giannis. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah. Let's go date night. Perfect.
perfect.
Yeah. So, what are your like impressions thus far? Things that you've seen that you like, don't like, everything.
Yep. I think that all the preseason noise about like a newfound attention to defensive detail was pretty accurate. Like I don't think the numbers bear it out necessarily,
No.
but there's more effort, there's more engagement. Uh, I feel like I'm seeing it to my eye. It has been a tough schedule so far. So if we've had a bad defense, I'm willing to chalk that up to playing against good offenses to an extent. I like in the two games I've watched, I thought the team looks better. I especially thought um that we looked good in game two. Somehow I'm forgetting who we lost to in
Memphis.
game two.
Memphis.
Memphis,
When
yeah,
John
Memphis
Morant when John Morant dropped
went
49 points.
nuts.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's been the best game. Like what they lost by like 7 or 8.
7, I
They
think.
lost, they lost by 7. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And
Now,
John Morant
in
had
all
scored
fairness,
49.
Jaron Jackson Jr. is out. They started Santi Almada and John Concar, or like for what that's worth. Uh, but they still should have beat us handily, and instead they beat us not handily. That's something, you know.
Yeah,
I think that you could see some progress from this team, but whether it's gonna actually show up in the win loss column is to be determined. You know, if we go back to back losses against the Jazz, suddenly we're in a hole already. You know, but of course maybe that's a good thing. You know, so it's like I said, house money. But my overall impression is that there's been progress, and I feel like our guys put in work this summer.
I agree. I think what's clear is not having Christian Wood, who, by the way, has been
Sensational.
absurd. But I think we knew that he'd be great with the Mavericks in a 6-man role, playing with Luca, because if we'd gotten a full season of Christian Wood and James Harden, what, like, was that 2 seasons ago?
Yeah.
I don't think Rockets fans would have fucking soured on him the way that they ended up, just because that's Christian Wood's best role, being a really deadly pick and roll partner with an elite on ball creator. And playing the 6-man role is even better because it means when he comes in with the bench unit, you know what he gets to do? Shoot. And
Shoot. Yeah, yeah.
that's what he wants to
Exactly.
do. That's what he wants to do.
Exactly.
He wants to
It was
shoot and
never
collect cheap
like
rebounds.
it's funny because I think with some Wood guys are taking victory laps, but like it was never like Wood is a talentless hack and we have to move him because he's bad at basketball. It was more just like he's bad for this team. What I most strongly believe about it is that Wood saw an opportunity to try to be the top dog and he took it when really that wasn't the right mentality. You know, like it's like, okay, bro, yeah, sure, you can be the best player on the team for 21, 22, but like you know Jalen Green's coming. You know this kid is more talented than you. Like why don't you try to help him, get him his reps, incorporate yourself into what the offense could look like long term, put in a defensive effort. But he wouldn't do those things. But he, of course, he makes sense alongside a heliocentric hub like Luca, right? He's a perfect target. He
Yeah.
can pop and roll out of pick and roll sets. That's all you need from a guy to play alongside Luca. Anyway, we're talking about Christian Wood
Yeah.
too much, probably.
But no, it's fine. So I was surprised that you didn't bring up Bruno Fernando coming in, getting the starting job over Alperen Şengün, which I think even yourself, when you heard that, that was somewhat of a surprise.
Oh yeah,
For Space City Scoop, I wrote like how this wasn't a surprise, not because I thought it was going to happen for a long time. It's just if you look at the way Steven Silas wants to play basketball, he wants his centers to be screen and dive, screen and roll, or pick and pop. And while Fernando is not a pick and pop guy, even though I think he has hit one pick and pop three already, he's
and
not
he's
a pick.
taking a few middies too. It looks like he
Yeah.
doesn't actually hate shooting. Yeah,
Yeah. The issue is that like the alternative Alperen Şengün is not a guy. I think he could be fine as a pick and roll, pick and rolling himself. I think he could be fine, especially in the short roll because of his passing ability. But he's a guy who wants the ball on the low block, let him back his shoulder in the guys, ping passes, get into there. And it's just like that's not really what he wants. And Şengün is not a good 3-point shooter yet. He's hit some, but he's left really wide open. He's bricked some when he's been really wide open. So like monitoring that development could, kind of determine how much run he gets this season. But like, yeah, it wasn't a surprise. That's how Silas wants his center to play. Fernando's definitely a better defensive guy. And I personally think that's actually really helped this team where, kind of going back to Wood, where your center is there to do the dirty work
yeah,
that you as a perimeter player can't really be asked to do because you're not in those positions. And then, like just imagine if like you're playing perimeter defense and you're playing with like a piss poor rim protector, you're gonna cheat off of guys. Like you have to because he's not gonna put up the effort he needs to, which leaves those guys wide open, which leads to more good 3-point shots, or they kick it out and then you have to scramble and then they pump fake and get by you, and it's real demoralizing. You're basically going, fuck, like all this shit's happening because this guy isn't doing one of the things he needs to do as well. And while we both agree Şengün doesn't do those things well, at least with him, there's not the like psychological and kind of team morale aspect of him not trying. Like
yeah,
Şengün, for all
yeah.
of his defensive faults, the dude
Tries,
fucking tries to do the
tries
right
really
thing.
hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think that's one of those things that like it doesn't show up in the box score, it doesn't show up in the advanced metrics, but like there is like a component of like guys play better when they feel like the other guys give a fuck.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like it's weird. It's like, when you can go play pickup and if you play with a guy who's just not giving a fuck on defense, it just can piss you off if you're also someone that, or if you're someone that does give a fuck. And because it's just like, fuck, like I'm having to like play defense for two people and this dude's just like doing jack shit.
Well, look, let me say this. Like, will is a component of sports, right? And especially a component of defense. And so it's like, if that thought creeps into your head, like, man, this guy is not doing anything on defense, and here I am guarding for both of us. Maybe you're mature enough to go, yeah, well, you know what? Just because he's not doing his job doesn't mean I'm not going to do mine. Like that's what a mature person would say. But still, when you're on your last breath, you don't dig deeper. Maybe it's subconscious, but like you might be a little more willing to quit, and it's you can't blame a person, right? Whereas, yeah, with Şengün, I think his guys know like Albron's back there hustling. He's exhausted. He's trying. He just has slow feet.
Yeah.
So
And I will say with defense, it's the worst thing is like we are saying like, oh, like he's not doing his job, blah, blah, blah. The problem with basketball and team defense is that if one guy's not doing their job, you can't do your job. And like it has this like massive cascading effect. It's like on offense, if a guy's not really doing his job, you can kind of get away with it as long as like, they're not the lead ball handler. Like you can kind of get away with it. But on defense, as soon as someone's not doing what they're supposed to, so as soon as they're not making their rotations, then your job actually becomes doing their job.
well, this is why I'm so big on rim protection, is because I think that that holds especially true from rim protection, because that's a one man job, right? Like when
Yeah.
that, yeah, like that's like the I'm struggling to find the perfect analogy. Like that's the link that holds the rest of the chain together. Like
The
it's
linchpin.
it's the linchpin. Yeah, exactly. Right. Thank you. Yeah. So that's why I just think it's really important to have a good defensive big if you're like a team that's trying to win
Yeah.
games.
Well, speaking of having a good defensive big, the game you didn't watch, the Bucks game, I put in my notes because I was like, I'm gonna write some stuff down while watching this game. I wrote Brooke Lopez owns the Rockets, and oh my god, people that aren't as old as us don't remember who Brooke Lopez was when he was first in the league. He was like not a good defensive center, and he was like a 22, 24, and 10 player who got a max
Yeah.
deal out of it. Like he was a really good offensive player.
Yeah.
Um,
Low post scorer with a
yeah,
face up game.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was great. Didn't shoot any threes. Like I mean, it was a
Yeah.
different, it was a more primitive time of basketball. Like
He's
it
a
was,
star big though. Yeah.
yeah, he was really good. And if you're, younger than us, you might just know Brooke Lopez really from his days with the Bucks, where he is a stretch five who is like one of the best rim protectors. And he was just exceptional at walling it off, which actually I want to get to another thing I've noticed. Jalen Green, good at attacking the rim. Like he's got the athleticism, he's got the bounce. He's as he adds strength, I think he'll get better there. The lack of strength and maybe just the inability, just based on his frame, to put on a lot more could maybe make it so he's not like an elite free throw generator, but I think he'll always be good. He needs to improve his creativity around the rim in terms of finishing, but that's super normal for a player like him because the first 18, 19 years of his life, he could just jump over who's ever at the rim. And now he's running into guys that like he can't jump through or jump over. Kevin Porter Jr. though doesn't have that leaping ability. And when I watch him, and his finishing around the rim has been like catastrophic. I think it's like within 3 feet, it's sub 20%.
Yeah, I believe it.
And it's a real big problem. And the first game against the Hawks, he hit like his first like two or three like little kind of like short mid range jumpers slash floater range, and I was like, this is huge. He was really bad there. It's now also like down under 20% for the season. So like his ability inside the 3 point line is concerning, but he needs to like someone needs to tell him like, hey, dude, you're not playing high school basketball. You can't just jump into these guys and think you're going to be jumping higher or being able to move them when you jump into him. Because so many of the times I've watched him he got blocked by Brooke Lopez. He jumped straight into him. I'm like, you like that's not going to work. You can't physically do what's necessary with that move against these guys. And if he doesn't develop like some more creativity, an ability to go right, finish with his right better, or kind of have that Kyrie low below the rim package, just anything like that. If he's just gonna try to like jump through guys, jump over guys, he can't. He's gonna just he can't drive. Like it's just
Are
it's
we
a
still talking KPJ?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
just
No.
it's just
Yeah.
it's one of these things where it's like I've watched it for 3 games now, and it's just like yo, like how like why aren't you changing what you're trying to do? Like surely you noticed you're not hitting any fucking layups. Like like
Yeah.
you're expecting to hit all of your layups. Like that's how a layup works. It's not like a 3-pointer where like, oh well, I missed one, whatever. I'm gonna miss 3 pointers. When you take a like you get a layup, even if there's like a guy there, you're expecting to hit it. Like that should be the mindset.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to me, that points to, in all likelihood, long term, he's a catch and shoot player when he's with the starters anyway, right? Like
Yeah.
that's probably his best role. And then, uh, I like him as a sixth man because he could probably attack against second units more easily. But he's not a lead ball handling attacking guard, man. It's just like I don't know how many seasons we have to prove that, but I think it's probably just one more. Like that's
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
So do you
maybe
want to
it's a
hear?
stealth tank move. I don't know.
Oh, they're like KPJ. Keep attacking the rib. Keep trying to jump through these guys. It's gonna be fine.
Well, I don't think they would even need to specify. They just say, keep doing what you do, man. You're the point guard. Run point the way that you think running point looks.
That would be fucking hilarious if they're like the best way for us to tank is to have this guy that doesn't really understand how to play point guard. Play point guard. I mean, it's actually kind of genius, but
It's also kind of cruel.
yeah,
It's like to tell the kid he's a point guard. You're the
yeah.
point guard, and then it's like, oh yeah, no, we were using you. Let's
So you
why don't we talk about Jalen?
let's talk about Jalen. But before, real quick, the Rockets' offense has improved substantially in two key ways. They're only 14th thus far in turnover rate when they were the most turnover prone team last season. They've cut over 2% off of their turnover rate, which is huge because the difference between them and the team that like had the lowest turnover rate was under 4%. And they had like the largest turnover rate by 1 full% over the second to worst team. So that's huge, right? Like that is great. They're also sixth in offensive rebounding rate. So like they're doing a good job of like improving in the possession battle. So there's like if they start hitting some more shots, I think like this offense could like look real good. But like I want you to talk about Jalen Green, who has had his highs and had his lows thus far. But it's 3 games, and I like what I've seen so far.
Well, I think the highs are a lot higher. To me, this the most encouraging thing about the season has been Green's play. He's averaging almost 24 points per game, on an outstanding true shooting percentage. Like I couldn't have asked for more from him through 3 games than 24 points a night on good shooting. His first game wasn't very good. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, actually, against the Bucks, he basically dragged his efficiency up through good 3-point shooting. For
That's kind of
me,
what he's been doing all year, really. He's
yeah,
been a lot hotter from deep than he has been from the paint.
yeah. The concern right now is I'm just looking at like the efficiency. Basically, he's just not finishing
Yeah,
around
not
the rim
finishing very
very
well.
well. He's at a 0 to 3 feet from the rim. It's 55.6%. Last season, it was 68%. The good news is he's actually increased the percentage of his shots coming around the rim. So, like, just,
That explains the decreased accuracy to some extent.
but it's not even that. It's like realistically, getting more shots around the rim is always super valuable because one, you just convert that, like, he's shooting poorly around the rim, and that's 55.6%, right? Like, if your offense just got shots at the rim and you shot 55.6%, even though that'd be bad around the rim, you'd be an elite efficiency offense, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
it's like just because
yeah.
it's not good for that range, it's like the ability to get there is huge. And like seeing that tick up is awesome.
But
And
also, I would add that I don't even like to get so granular with like a sophomore. Like at the end of the
yeah,
day, this kid is 20 years old, babyface beauty, averaging 24 points per game on good true shooting, and his on ball defense is much improved. Like all things considered, he's having an outstanding year so far.
Yeah.
I'll be more inclined to worry about things like that when we're like when it matters. But
Oh
it's
yeah.
worth noting though.
Yeah, it's worth noting. And the other thing that I think will sort itself out as the season goes. He hasn't been getting enough foul calls when he's getting near the rim. His foul, his ability to draw free throws is relatively the same, and that's unusual considering he's getting more shots at the rim and he's taking fewer 3-pointers as a percentage of his shots. You would think that the free throw attempts would tick up, and they probably will because it's been
Let
only
me
3 games.
on to that. Let me say this though. In fairness to the officials, I think he's a pretty difficult player to officiate because he's definitely an outlier athlete, and I think that he creates a lot of situations where it looks like he might have been fouled, and then when you see the replay, you're like, oh no, there was no foul there at all. So maybe with that in mind, refs are like, oh, that probably wasn't a foul when it actually was. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, and it's just by virtue of how quickly he gets to the rim and how high he gets in the air and stuff, and like it's just hard to tell whether the guy was in position. So I think it's just hard for the ref's brain to even process
Yeah,
what's happening. You know,
yeah,
a lot of like basically any player with physical outlier qualities is just harder to officiate. Shaq used to have guys hanging off his back, fucking putting him in a headlock. It's different, but it's the same in the sense that like this guy has a physical trait that's so much different than everybody else's that it's hard to apply the rules to him.
yeah. Also, I do think he's so agile and bendy that he can avoid contact to try to get looks when really he should just be like, it's like, no,
Yeah,
initiate contact and put it up because you're going to get like, that's the way to do it. Right.
yeah.
Like, and I think he'll get better at that. He'll also start to get more calls when refs understand that he is good. Um, I really like what I've seen. I mean, and I do actually like that he's taking fewer threes. I think that's a really good development because at the end of the day, like he can always get a 3-pointer whenever he wants.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
so what's going to be the make or break thing is can he get a layup? Can he get a mid range jumper? And can he hit them consistently? He's been really bad on long twos, which he's been taking more of. About 13.3% of his field goal attempts are long twos. I, I don't care about that percentage being, maybe you'd want him to take fewer, but he's only hitting 12.5%. So like that's really bad. Just keep that shit will average out. He hasn't hit a shot from 10 to 16 feet. I think all the offensive, stuff is like trending in the right direction. Like obviously you want him to hit more layups, but he's hitting 50% of his shots 3 to 10 feet in that floater range. That's super good. So for him as a scorer, everything is looking really good. I'm a little bit concerned about the assist percentage going from 13.1% last year to 12.1. I want him to be more of a playmaker. And I think that's just kind of like the role he's in on offense is, hey, like, you're the shooting, like he's playing like someone told him what a shooting guard is. And I think they should be like, no, man, like you're an offense. Like
Yeah,
be
yeah.
an offense. And right now he's being a shooting guard.
Yeah, no, that I agree with. And to me that's like to me that is the biggest long-term concern with him, and it's what's going to keep him from like or not what's going to keep him, but it's the difference between him being like a top 25ish player and a top 10ish player, right? Is like can you be a playmaker? He doesn't need to be, Luca, LeBron, Rondo-esque floor vision guy to where like he sees every angle and every pass and he's a basketball genius, but like he needs to recognize when to make the easy read and and make it. I think he's a willing enough passer. He doesn't touch the ball that often, right? He's just really good at scoring when he does. I do think he's got a willingness to pass. It's not showing up. I mean, he's averaging 2.3 assists and 2.3 turnovers per game. So it's basically like he's not even trying. Like his points are his entire statistical output, really, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, let me on the subject of his game besides scoring though, let me say another thing. Something I'm finding interesting and I think probably encouraging is that towards the end of last year, I felt that his off-ball defense was starting to really come around. He was getting in passing lanes, he was a bit of a ball hawk, he was coming up with big steals, but the on-ball stuff was still really bad. He was getting bullied by anybody who bothered to try, and he couldn't stay in front of anybody, you know. And even if he could stay in front of them, they just kind of go through him. Now this year, the on-ball defense looks a lot better, but I haven't seen a lot of off-ball stuff. And actually, I think I've seen a little bit of out of positionness and lack of awareness at times. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he can get those things together at once, because he does have the physical tools to be like really a far above average defender if he puts it together, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing for a young guard like him is going to be the lack of strength. And if you're guarding lead ball handlers, you're going to be put through a fuckload of fucking pick and rolls. And when you play offense the way he does, where you're blowing by guys, those are high energy plays. Like I know, like you know, if you go out and you play basketball and you're covering the guy with the ball in his hand a lot, and they're setting a bunch of screens for him, fighting through fucking screens is tiring. By the time you get to your offensive possessions, you're like, yo, let me just go in the corner and fucking space, because like I don't have the energy to like fucking get this ball, drive by a guy, try to finish at the rim, and then go back down the other end of the court and have to like fight through fucking screens. So I agree. I think the on ball defense looks better. I think it looks, I'm not gonna say good, because compared to like everyone on the Rockets, it's pretty easy to look good on ball defense, because like that's not really their thing.
He
Defense.
has held opponents to low percentages as the primary defender, but those
I
tracking stats are only worth so much at the same time
Yeah, I
too.
know.
So
I
yeah,
think someone showed the one of those stats, and it was like it was like defending under like it was like under 20 total shots. And I'm like, guys, like here's the thing.
yeah.
You can't bitch and moan about the analytics over the course of the season, saying a player, Jalen Green, as an example, wasn't very good as a rookie, saying analytics are stupid. You have to watch the game. And then over
And then
three
use them,
games,
yeah.
you use these fucking tracking stats to be like, see, he's actually a lockdown defensive player.
The
He
other thing is you could miss a dunk on a wide open fast break, and Jalen's the nearest guy, and he farts, and that counts as having defended the dunk, right? So it's
exactly.
yeah, those stats. But I have felt that the on-ball defenses look pretty solid
It
myself.
has looked pretty solid. I mean, like he blocked a Trae Young three, and it became a transition dunk, which is box office, and I think shows that he's got the potential to be good enough on defense,
Yeah,
where as much as we're saying, hey, like he needs to be a better playmaker if we think his scoring can get to the level it is, but he needs to be a better playmaker to be a top 10 player. If his defense develops, maybe he doesn't actually need to be
maybe.
that type of playmaker. Obviously, you would want everything.
Like
You'd
you
be
want
like,
everything. Yeah, right.
but
Yeah.
like,
No, but yeah, if he's a B minus defender and an A plus scorer and a C minus playmaker, that's a really great player, you know? So
yeah. Okay,
yeah.
let's go get into some fucking topics, because we talked about these first three games, which is basically us talking about KPJ and Jalen Green. Because guess what? This team basically is going to go as far as they go.
Yes.
So that's unfortunate, um, because relying on young guards, my bad, relying on a second year guard and relying on a not point guard playing point guard does not set your team up for a ton of success. But they will have highlights, and the people will be like, look, Kevin Porter Jr. is a great passer. He hit a guy ahead in transition for a dunk. Fantastic playmaking. I'm like, yeah, so that's not like fantastic playmaking. That's a pass I could make, because it's quite obvious. So let's talk about some of these questions that are big picture, season long questions. It's only 3 games. They got 79 more. First question, James. How good can the Rockets be? And the second part of the question is another question. How good should they want to be?
Yeah.
Because I think we differ a little bit, or
A
maybe
fair
a
bit.
lot,
A fair
on
bit.
the
Yeah.
second part of the question.
Well, no, maybe just a little bit. Yeah. So we'll get into that. First of all, it's surprised how good they can be. I mean, I've said this a few times now, but 12th seed in the Western Conference. Like, I still think
Ooh, how good
I
can they be? 79-3 starts tonight.
yeah, okay, all
How
right. So
about that?
79 and
How
3.
about that?
They'll probably be 79 and 3 if
Put
I
it
had to
down.
guess.
Put it down.
Yeah.
I'm writing it in pen. Write it in pen.
Yeah.
79 ampersand 3.
De trois. Yeah. 12th seed in the Western Conference. I figure that Ainge is gonna find a way to make the Jazz suck, man. I do not believe that this Utah Jazz team is just gonna roll into the playoffs with Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen, or they're gonna be happy to participate in the play-in and get the 14th overall pick or whatever the hell. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like there's no foundation here. Like there's no yeah, no, this just it's early season noise, and Ainge is gonna make sure of it, man. I really believe that.
Man, look, this is about to turn into a Utah Jazz podcast. Here's the thing: if the Jazz go to Houston tonight after playing the night before and beating the Pelicans in OT, and they win, and then they have to fly back to Utah and play the Rockets again, but this time at home, and they win, they will be 5-0.
Yeah, five. And you can dig out of a 5-0 hole though.
But that's the thing. If you're 5-0, how do you pull the plug on that team right there? Because the problem is that 5-0 start, they go what? 15-20 the next 35 games. They're 20-20. And then maybe you pull the plug because you're like, "Oh, we're only 500." But look where the Lakers are. Look where the Kings are. They're 0-3. Right? So like there's a chance they're like 20-20 and the 9 seed, and you have the All-Star game in Utah, and this is a fan base that like wants to see a pretty good team. And I'll tell you this: if this team starts the season 5-0, do you know how crazy that fan base is going to be? Because they thought this team was going to fucking suck. Like at a certain point, Trader Danny might not actually care about making the best decision, because you know what decision he can also make? The decision that makes him look like a fucking genius. The guy that traded away probably his 3 best players. And oh, guess what? We're 5-0, bitches. Trader Danny. Trader Danny got rid of 2 All-Stars and Bohan Bogdanovic, who's like, I don't know, he could average 24 points per game if you wanted him to, which is maybe an All-Star as well, depending on the year. Trade away like, those 3 guys, and it's like, yeah, but we're 5-0. And I got a bunch of picks back too. I didn't even go for the players. The only player I got back that anyone cares about is Kelly Olynyk and Jared Vanderbilt and fucking Colin Sexton out here. And I'm building a super team in Utah. And the fans are gonna love it because they'll be the Atlanta Hawks when they were the 1 seed, except they won't win that many games. But if they do, who knows? I mean,
let me tell you this, man. If the Jazz win 35 games this year or something, and the Rockets win 25 games this year,
it'll be great. The best season ever.
For the Rockets.
Yes, it'll be the best season ever for the Rockets.
The Jazz are in the I would say they might be in the worst position in the NBA if they won 35 games this year. Because if the Rockets won 35 games this year, it means Jalen Green's gonna be a superstar. If the Jazz win 35 games this year, it means that they fucking fluked into it, because there's nobody on this roster that's going to be a superstar. Everybody's too old to become a superstar. Like Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton are not going to become like top 10 players. So what it's going to mean is that like they put together a team that's kind of hard to scout because nobody knows who their first option is, because everybody's like, what the hell is this team? We don't even know what to do with it.
They're playing basketball. Playing pure basketball. You're like,
yeah, play it, man. Play it. You're in the worst position in the whole NBA, in my opinion, if that's how the season goes.
It's one of those things that sounds like a hot take, but it's really not. I don't know what they're gonna do though, because like for real, it's like Mike Conley's been playing well, Jordan Clarkson's been playing well. Clarkson's gonna be easier to move, but Conley's like one of these guys where he's playing well. I think this is the last year he has guaranteed a significant amount of guaranteed money on his deal. I think he has 1 more year. He's like 30 million, maybe a little bit less per season.
I think it's 22 off the top of my head, I think.
Yeah, he's making good money, but not crazy money. But it's like, what are you going to get in return for him? And does it make sense to like hold on to him for next season when he becomes an expiring? Just kind of, keep him healthy, rest him on back-to-backs, all that stuff. This is not a Utah Jazz podcast, but like,
no,
you're right.
Well, it's relevant enough.
It is relevant that like them winning more games than the Rockets this season, frankly, would just be a complete and utter disaster for their long-term prospects. Just because it made so much sense to tank this season.
Yeah, exactly. It was
like,
obvious, right?
and like they made the first three moves they needed to make, and then they're like, "Yeah, we're not gonna make the next two we need." And it's like, no, make those next two, because if you tank and get Wembenyama and have Laurie Markkinen and Colin Sexton around that,
Oh my
that's
god, yeah.
that's like an interesting team. Like
You're
that's
ready to go. Like start getting bets. Like
yeah, and you have all
yeah,
those picks
so
coming in. It's just like whatever. Okay, so how bad or good should the Rockets try to be? Because you put that 25 win number out there, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking I know what you want. You want more than 25 wins. But is that what they need? It's like that Rolling Stones song.
you can't always get what you want.
Yeah, but you got to get what
But
you need.
sometimes you get
Yeah.
what you need, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want, man. I don't know at this point, right? Like I just don't know. Like okay, we talked about this a lot via text the other day, and I wanted to put a hypothetical to you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, so for those listening, a little bit of context first. We've been debating tanking a lot, whether it's the right move for the Rockets, whether it's you know generally a good way to build a team or whatever. And like my position is like very muddy as it often is. I'm not saying that like I'm not wholesale against tanking. The past 2 seasons I've wanted to tank and I've been happy to tank. This year I can see the case that it would be better for the team to start making some progress and some improvement and to look a little better. And so with that context, let me throw a hypothetical at you, okay? Two prospects in the upcoming draft. Nick Smith, Case and Wallace. Are you familiar with them? I'm sure you've heard of Nick at least.
I've heard of Nick, Casey Wallace. No, never heard
Okay.
of him.
All right. So Case and Wallace is probably going to go top 10. Nick Smith is probably going to go top 5, right? They're both combo guards, basically. Smith gets Gilbert Arenas comparisons. I find that to be like the
Stop.
most common.
Timeout. He should
I
be
know.
number one on everyone's board. Fuck
Get out of here.
Wembenyama. Look, as
Go
a
get the
Wizards fan, I got the Bullets hat on. If you're looking at the YouTubes, as a Wizards fan, the fucking entertainment value of having Gilbert Arenas and just the energy he can bring to his city, it's like, I mean, it's what you hope Jalen Green ends up becoming. But Gilbert Arenas had that kind of like unhinged Nick Young / kind of crazy person vibe to him. You need him. You need just draft him number one overall. Your franchise is saved. You'll win 45 games, losing the first round to LeBron like Gilbert did. But it will be worth it because the fans will love it.
All right. So that's funny. Nick Smith, he gets Gilbert Arenas comparisons, right? He's really athletic, shifty guard with a crazy handle, great jumper. Yeah, he's going to be probably like a top option guy. He's probably 4th, 5th overall pick, something like that. Cason Wallace gets J. Rue Holiday comparisons. He is a excellent point of attack defender, aggressive, really good 3-point shooter, not an elite half court offensive creator, but like he's got a little floater game. He's got a decent handle. He can get a few points for you, right? So here's where I'm going with this. And I think from your smile that you might already have some idea of where I'm going with this. If the Rockets are an absolute train wreck again and we win 23, 24 games, one of the worst teams in the league, whatever, right? Then yeah, give me the Gilbert Arenas, right? Of course. But if we're a surprisingly competitive team and we win 28, 29 games, whatever, then give me the J. Rue Holiday guy, right? Because Jalen's already got the Gilbert Arenas thing covered. So that's where I just feel like the draft, to some extent, it's like a self-solving problem. It's like you get what you need in a sense. Like if Jalen Green is obviously going to be a scoring champion, I would rather pair him with a J. Rue Holiday than a Gilbert Arenas.
Okay. It's Drew.
Oh yeah, but see, no, I don't know, man, because
It is Drew.
Slam magazine called him J. Rue the Damager in reference to the '90s rapper one time, and that's why that pronunciation always stuck in my head.
One Slam magazine.
Yeah,
That's OG. That's OG. A guy with the high school wrote for them for a while. Cool. I think he's now coaching.
I read them religiously growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. They were. I think it was like the kind of the AI era was like their peak in
Big time.
At least. I mean, that's back when people still did magazines. Regardless of how to say J. Rue or Drew Holiday, I'm going with Drew because
I think it is Drew. I think
that's what I've heard for that. But I like your little Canadian flair, throwing on some culture for the listeners. I get what you're saying. I see your point, but here's my point. I just want Gilbert Arenas. I just want Victor Wembanyama over Drew Holiday. And like, that's the point, is that look at the Hawks as a team that tanked, got their superstar, and then said, we're going to draft the supporting pieces to build around them. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go look at those supporting pieces that they drafted to build the Golden State Warriors 2.0. Kevin Herter, they didn't want to pay him, or they paid him and then they said, oh, fuck, we don't actually want to keep paying him. Go to the Kings and have a good start to the season. We'll get rid of you. Okay, so he's gone. Oh, let's go look at Cam Reddish, supposed to be a 3-and-D guy. Look how that turned out. Not so good. And then look at the one guy that's still on the team. Just
DeAndre
got
Hunter.
Yeah, DeAndre Hunter just got 4 years, $95 million. Dude has played 130 games. They basically gave him a big extension because they drafted him 4th overall, and they're hoping he becomes the player that they wanted him to become when he got drafted. But it's like 3 years into his career, and they're still hoping for that player to emerge. And it's because they drafted for fucking fit.
No,
What
but
if
here's
they
the
had
problem.
just said, I'm going to draft the best player available? They would also have Luka Doncic because they drafted him 3rd and then fucking traded him to the Mavericks.
Yeah,
but the point being is that look where they are now. Those guys, one of them sort of is a part of the team, a big part of the team. The other two aren't even on the team. And then they had to trade a bunch of picks to go get a guy to like fill out the rest of the roster.
Here's the problem, though. They took DeAndre Hunter with the 4th overall pick. I'm not saying we should take Casey Wallace with the 4th overall pick, right? I'm saying that if we are drafting 8th or 9th or 10th, then that means we only need that type of player. Do you know what I'm saying?
Like, you don't
draft for fit within the top 5, though.
I don't necessarily see. I don't necessarily believe that. Like, I think it depends in a lot of situations, but I firmly believe that this Rockets team needs one more guy with superstar potential, because the way I see it is this: is that realistically, Jalen Green is the only guy on this team that I have, any real confidence that can become a superstar player, right? I think you agree with that. I really like Jabari Smith Jr., and there is a route for him to become a superstar. But guess what I have in my notes for when they played the Bucks?
Jabari Smith Jr., not superstar.
If Jabari doesn't have to dribble, he can score. You know what makes you a superstar? You can dribble and
score.
Like,
I don't think Barry's penned for superstardom or anything. I don't. It's not.
But I think he'd be
possible.
He'd be like one of the best third options. He'd be like the Klay Thompson for the Golden State Warriors situation. Yeah, Chris Bosh, like a great third option next to 2 fantastic superstar players. And so I look at it that way, and I'm like, look, like, if you don't get a chance at a guy who's a superstar in this draft, you're going to have to trade for one, most likely. And as much as people are like, oh, well, we have all these assets, sure, but wouldn't it be a lot nicer if you fucking just drafted him and then, I don't know, maybe you trade for a 3rd superstar, or I don't know, maybe you just have all these picks and you can keep replenishing the roster, keep drafting good guys that you think could be good role players, or trade those picks and those young players for good role players. Like, I don't love tanking. I hate tanking. But if you're gonna do it, you do it. And I think the thing with the Rockets is the clear plan, the clear setup, because their picks, we forget their picks. The Rockets picks are going away to the Oklahoma City Thunder the next 3 drafts. They send
2 drafts.
They send 2 out and they have a pick swap. There's protections on them, but But like, here's the thing: I think it's
the next 2 or 3 drafts.
Yeah, they could send out 2 picks, and if they swap with them, then they get a worse pick than they would have. But like, that is the reality of the situation, where it's like your last chance to control the value of a pick for the next 3 years, where you're going to get it for sure, is this season. And it just so happens to be a historic draft, right? It's not like, if this draft was like different, where it was like, oh, like, if it was like last year's draft, right, where you're like, oh, there's 3 good players at the top, but like after that, there's some depth and like, who really knows? I would agree with you much more. I'd be like, you know what, trying to suck as much as possible. It's just like, the difference between the guy that got drafted, 6th in this year's draft and 17th, Tari Eason or something, right? Like the difference between those two guys isn't massive. But this draft, you have a chance at guys who are special that could be that next superstar. And I just see it as one of those things where it's like this opportunity, like you tanked and you have a chance to tank in a season where tanking is super fucking valuable, which means you should take that opportunity because some teams are in the rebuild phases and they're tanking and they're the worst team in the league in a draft that isn't that fucking good.
Yeah. Let me say this before we probably get off this because, yeah. Um, it depends how the 28-29 wins come, right? Which I've also said this to you privately. If like my nightmare scenario is down the stretch of the year, everybody's sitting their guys, the Wizards are sitting Beal, the Hornets are sitting Ball, the Thunder are sitting Gilgeous Alexander, and the Rockets go, oh, great, I guess we can win some games and keep playing, Green and Şengün and Bari, and we get all these meaningless wins. Like that would be the worst case scenario to me. So if everybody's tanking the way that it's said that they might be, then I want the Rockets to tank with them, right? Like I don't want to be winning games against teams that are hoping to lose. That's sucker shit. Like
Counterpoint, counterpoint to this. And I agree. But what if they just rack up so many losses at the beginning of the season, like it's possible, that you can just keep playing Green and Şengün because you have such a cushion where you're like, well, we're going to end up with one of the bottom three records, even if we collect a few bullshit wins against, the Wizards, right? Because like
yeah.
it's like the standings dictate. It's not like your wins and losses dictate your lottery odds. Your standing does. So if you have like a bottom three record locked down, and wouldn't you rather them be able to play 82 games and be going all out for 82 because they banked the
Mm,
L's early?
increases injury risk. I don't know.
I mean,
But
yeah, but okay,
okay, let me say this. Let me say this.
that's the counterpoint.
Yeah. Right, yeah. uh if the Rockets win 28-29 games this year because Green continues to establish that he's going to be a star in this league, and Tari Eason looks like he also is going to be a star in this league, and Şengün's defense goes from looking horrible to just kind of bad, and all the and Bari's shot starts falling, and all the things that you want start happening, then I see a lot of benefits in that. It's house money this year, man. It doesn't matter, you know.
I get that, and I get it from a fan perspective
I
that you
think even
are.
from any if they earn honest to God 28-29 wins this year, to me it's evidence, if not proof, that they're like ahead of schedule.
Yes, but at the same time, the thing it's like, have you ever heard the saying like, take one step back to take three steps forward?
Yeah.
Winning 29 games would be them taking one step forward this season to take one step forward next season. When with them not getting there, even if it looks better, and them just like intentionally trying to be at that like 22 to 19 win total, that would be them kind of taking a step back to maybe get that lottery odd, to get increase those lottery odds to get the guy that allows them to then take three steps forward next season, where you're like, oh shit. It's like, I don't want, basically it's like, I don't want them to be like, let's try to win 27 to 30 games this season so we can then win 33 to 35 next season. I'm like, no, like try to be bad this season so you can win 30 to 35 next season when you have all this cap space, when you may have another blue chip prospect. And it's just like that to me, it's like I think they can get to the 33 to 35 win total next season, regardless of where they finish with wins. And I do think their long term prognosis after that next season is much higher if they're really bad and get a really good prospect this season. Look, man, imagine if they get Scoot Henderson.
Of course.
Think
Of
about how
course.
good
But that's why I say
Scoot
it's house
next
money.
to Jalen.
That's in some ways my argument can't be beat because there's no bad there's no bad outcome. I'm not here saying like tanking will destroy this
There
franchise,
is the
it'll
bad
ruin the
outcome, but there is the bad outcome where they then don't get the guy. And then you're looking next season where you
don't
want
need
them
the
to,
guy.
they will need the guy. They
Well then how
this
did we get 20-29 wins?
because Jalen Green is going to be really good. But like we've
Perfect.
seen, yeah, but if we've seen teams where it's like you need more than one super good player to even make the finals.
Well, I mean, if Jalen's going to be that good, right? Then I mean, there are ways like maybe Tari is the next guy, you know?
I know, but
Like
that's
to
a
make the
big maybe.
finals, you don't need 3 MVP candidates or whatever, you know? Like really need a well-built, well-structured team that plays well together and has a shit ton of talent.
Look, you're entrenched in thinking that winning games is important, and I'm entrenched in losing games is important. But at the end of the day, we both want the same thing to happen. We want the team to win 33 to 40 games within the next two seasons after this.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think like
exactly.
and I think we are taking opposite, not opposite routes. We're
Well,
taking the route where you see, because the way I see is like, you'll say this with prospects. Oh man, it's like, you can't, not everything's linear growth. And that's kind of my point with this team is that I see a team
yeah,
where I
I
don't
get
think
that.
their growth is going to be linear. And I think it could be not, and I think trying to see linear growth now stunts the ability for there to be exponential growth. And I'm saying by trying to lose
Sure.
more games now increases the chance there is exponential growth. And that's what I want. We both want the exponential growth because that means like, ooh, contender, right? With linear, I just don't know if that growth is going to get there because you're missing out on that chance to get that like that little boost to the rebuild. We've talked about this too long. I
Let
want
me
to,
just say
yeah,
one thing. It's not that I'm saying the tank is bad. My argument is more so that there are other ways that could also be good.
yes,
Like,
yes, yes.
yeah, right. If we win 18 games this year, I absolutely see how fucking awesome that is, right? Like
Yes.
that's awesome. If we get Victor Wembanyama, forget about it, you know? So like I'm not saying
It's
that
over.
like I'm just not one of those tank guys that like every time we win it's gonna be like, oh, with the tank, you know? Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just not quite, yeah.
Yeah, but that's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, like, because like at the end of the day, like you want people to be able to smile, and you don't want to go 0-82.
Yeah.
Um,
So all I'm saying, I'm just kind of being the devil's advocate and saying, hey, you know what? Case and Wallace wouldn't be that bad either. Like it's we'll see what happens. But
yeah,
we should move on to the next one.
this is a question that I think Rockets fans have been ignoring a little bit based upon me looking at Twitter. So if you're like, I haven't been ignoring this question, sorry, tweet more or follow at NB Limberg, and I might follow you back, and then I'll see it. So there, push myself. Anyways, Jabari Smith Jr. or Tari Eason, who is going to be the better rookie? And I just want to put this out there. Both of them already at the NBA level are NBA level defenders, which is not something you say about rookies. You sometimes say it about a rookie, as in Herb Jones, who's already one of the best defenders in the league, but that guy was a 4-year college player. Tari Eason was a 2-year guy. Jabari Smith Jr. was a 1-year guy. So these guys are not even old rookies where you're like, oh, okay. I think legitimately, if these guys are playing the 3 and the 4 or the 4 and the 5 on the court, you can have at their peak, regardless of who's around them, a better than average defense, which is huge. Now,
Yeah.
who do we think is going to be better as a rookie?
If you had to predict what I'm going to say, what would you predict?
I would say you're going to say Tari Eason is going to be a better rookie
Yeah.
because for two simple reasons. Jabari Smith Jr. cannot create on his own. And the Rockets guard situation, as we've kind of alluded to in previous conversations, isn't doing a great job of creating consistent, good, easy looks. And that's what he is going to need to have a good rookie season. I've actually seen Jabari Smith Jr. put the ball on the deck, try to get to the hole, try to get to the rack. I've seen him put the ball on the dribble, try to create like a mid-range jumper. It hasn't looked great. I don't care. I actually, it's fine that it doesn't look great. I'm just glad he's doing it. And so those are positive developments. But Tari Eason is gonna, he's a little bit different athletically in terms of burst. He's gonna get it. He's gonna go. He's gonna finish. I think he's a better finisher around the rim. I think he's stronger. He's a little bit older, and his 3-point shot has looked okay. Like the teams leave him open, but he's hit enough of them where I'm like, okay, like he'll probably be able to shoot above 33%, which for him I think is like a good development, even though I think he probably could one day be closer to 40. So I just think he's going to be one of these guys where you look at the end of the season, you're like, he didn't have as much opportunity, but the efficiency was way better. And then defensively, I think they're very close because Easton's had some blocks and steals where I'm like, you can't teach this.
Yeah, no, Eason is so exciting. And I also I just think that physical qualities tend to define rookie success more than anything else. Like Barry, he's just a little too skinny. He'll be a much more versatile defender, like if he bulks up a little bit and fills out a little bit. He doesn't need to develop like the Giannis body, but just a little more strength, would go a long way. So far as like right now he kind of gets shoved around by bigs and even like strong wings, 'cause nobody's shoving Tari around. Like he's like Tari doesn't need any physical development. He can just be what he is. He just needs to refine some skill aspects of his game, such as being able to dribble with both hands and probably long term he's gonna need to fix that shooting form. If I had to guess, maybe not. But he's got the Tari's a little bit raw, but
Yeah.
he's physically ready, and I think that makes a big difference for rookies. So I think Tari is going to have a better rookie year, depending on your measure. Like, Barry's going to get more opportunities and more minutes because he was the lottery pick, and so he's going to be prioritized. But, like, on a per 36 basis, I expect the trend of Tari looking better to continue.
So let's just compare per 36 minutes over 3 games, which will define the rest of their careers. So what you're
Guaranteed.
hearing now is just it's the end game. It's what they are. So per 36 minutes, Jabari Smith Jr. is averaging 15.2 points per game or per 36 minutes, 7.2 boards. This is the concern. 30% on 2-pointers and then 30.8% on 3-pointers. The 3-point shooting, those will both go up. So like I wouldn't worry too much about the efficiency, but a 30.4 field goal percentage from a guy who's supposed to be a great shooter. Not a great start, but once again, first 3 games in the NBA. Tari Eason, the beast, averaging 17 points per 36 minutes, 10.9 boards. I think his rebounding is going to be super, super crucial for this team in the short term and the long term. Because if you can get a small forward that can average 8 rebounds a game, that is huge because it like defensive as we're seeing now, there's now a trend towards going towards let's get a bunch of offensive boards as a way to like juice our offense. Having a wing that can be really good out there is like I think in the next 3 or 4 years, like that's going to be something that like teams are focusing on. It's like we need wings that can rebound. So he's doing that, and then 2.7 blocks, right? Like his efficiency's been great. Obviously, 66% from 3-point range will come down. Only 40% on twos, so that probably will go up. But like we're
What about
looking at
steals?
his steals are only 0.7. Jabari Smith Jr. does not have any steals. It's 3 games. He's played, how many minutes has Tari Eason played? He's played 53 minutes and
Yeah.
he's got a steal. Like I wouldn't read too much into that. But like he'll get some more and we'll see kind of as the season progresses. I wonder if he'll force the coaching staff to start him.
Well, that's kind of. How would you feel if I transitioned into the next topic? Because we've ran a little bit long, and it happens to be a good segue that you just made just there now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm looking forward to most in the season is probably seeing to what extent Tari can earn a role because I think it's been really evident, like just eye test wise, man. You watch this team, the energy shifts when Tari's on the floor, and he just earns his time. He's got magnets in his hands, man. Wherever the ball is, he has a chance to get it. He works his ass off. He's a pretty dynamic offensive player. He's a willing passer. He can create in half court to an extent with his driving, and like there's no there's increasingly no reason not to predominantly feature him in the rotation unless we're tanking. And like maybe we're tanking, but I definitely don't think we should be tanking so flagrantly that we won't give Tari Eason some run this year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think realistically he should probably just be starting,
Yeah.
period.
Yes.
Because the way I see it is that if you start him, you then have the option to start Shengun if you think it's a good matchup, right? Like I get when Bruno Fernando was out against the Bucks with a sore knee, he's going to miss tonight's game as well. People were like, "Oh, Shengun's coming in," and then it was Usman Garuba, and people were like,
Yeah.
"What the
People
fuck?"
were really pissed, man. My
And I'm
DMs were
like, "Look, no,
hilarious.
I get it. Like Shengun against Giannis and Brooke Lopez is like going to get killed on defense. Granted, Garuba got killed. Everyone gets killed on defense pretty much by Giannis, but offensively, he wasn't going to be able to like bully Brooke Lopez and or Giannis to like do the things that make him great. So it made sense to not have that. But now tonight they're playing the Utah Jazz, whose front court has so far been Lauri Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk. Maybe actually starting Şengün in this game would be a good idea because he can definitely take advantage of those guys' defensive limitations. And while those guys are great offensive players, they're basically, like they're good floor spacers who maybe you're just like, hey, like just close out. If they beat us on the drive, we'll rotate over. And guess who'd be really good at rotating over to go along with
Tari
Jabari
Eason.
Smith Jr.? Yeah, Tari Eason. So it's like that's why to me, I really think that they should consider starting him because it allows you to go super defensive if you're up against like a dangerous front court or a dangerous offense. If you have Bruno Fernando and Usman Garuba at center, but if you think, hey, like Şengün's a good matchup for these guys, we can start him, and the defense is we're gonna have enough defensive support that it can make us leaning into what makes Şengün a good offensive player actually valuable because we're not getting hammered on the other end. What do you think? How about that? How about that?
Yeah. The only thing I'll say actually is I'm really conflicted on tonight's matchup as to, and we're digressing, but I just want to make this
Yeah,
point. Uh, as to who the better start is because Utah shoot a lot of threes and their whole
they do.
front court are shooters. And part of me thinks starting Garuba makes more sense because he's probably more effective closing out 3-point attempts than Şengün is. So, but it's a trade off because on offense, tonight's a real night to have Şengün on the floor. So that's gonna be an interesting dynamic tonight. I think it's like
Yeah.
we can defend them better with Garuba, but we can attack them better with Şengün.
So this is my theory with teams that shoot a bunch of threes. You can't really defend threes.
It's just make or miss. To an extent, that's true. Yeah.
It's like you can't like obviously you can defend threes, but if like the whole reason why teams take a fuckload of threes now is they're like really fucking hard to defend.
Yeah.
Because it's just they just are. And I also don't like Garuba isn't super tall or explosive, and both Olynyk and Markkanen are taller than him. So I don't even know how well he's going to contest him. The reason why you'd want Garuba is, in my mind, is that if they do a pump and go, Şengün is going to be stuck in Eurobasket while Markkanen's dunking on it.
Yeah.
Garuba has a better chance to recover
Recover. Yeah.
and do that. But like even then, hey, if you just tell Şengün close out hard, if they pump and go, they pump and go. Just don't foul them when they shoot threes. We'll rotate over. Like I would, if I was a coach, I would be fine living and dying on if Lauri Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk can pump and go us to death. And I can tell you this: whoever is guarding Şengün of those two will end up in foul trouble. So it might not like that's the big reason to me why you would probably want to go with Şengün is because he can get one of those two guys off the court, and then that hurts their 3-point shooting. I think that hurts their spacing, that hurts their offense, and that gives you an advantage in a game that the undefeated Utah Jazz.
What are you most looking forward to, man, this season?
I mean, I think predominantly it's Silas getting fired. And by Silas getting fired, I don't actually mean like I want Steven Silas fired. I think he's a good dude. I think he's good for these guys as like just a person. But I want him to get this offense operating in a way that like makes sense and is like efficient and good. I wrote an article about this, about how they're not taking any corner threes this year. It's not the offense's fault. The structure of it's fine, but a lot of it comes down to Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green, their two primary ball handlers, inability to hit guys in the corners. And then on top of that, there's the issue of like their veteran guard in Eric Gordon. He's not a very good passer. He's got a lot of good traits, but he's not a very good passer.
That's bothered me. Both the first two games, I'm like, this guy, he's not even the right veteran for the team. Like,
Yeah.
he never looks to pass. He's not showing these guys like, here's how you do it. He's showing them, I do it the same way you do. I'm just older and better at it.
Yeah. And so they're not hitting guys in the corners. And if you look at their offensive structure, there's almost always a guy there. There's guys that are open. They're creating situations to get the ball in the corner. And I go, okay, like Silas, like here's the thing, like you run a 5 out or a 4 out with a pick and roll guy. the bread and butter of your offense is we can generate shots around the rim through the pick and roll and generate corner threes because those are the two high efficiency shots. And that's what this type of offensive structure should have a bunch of. Instead, they just take a bunch of above the break threes and they hit them pretty well, which is encouraging. But it's like their offensive efficiency, if they just, shifted more of their 3-pointers to the corners, could be pretty fucking good for how young and raw some of these guys are. And then because they're not even running the offense effectively in the way that you would expect Silas to run an offense, I would go, okay, well, like add some new wrinkles, like see if you can't figure out a way to like have Alperen Şengün play with the starters a bit better or like fit in a bit more and make some changes. And it's just like I see a guy running an offense where it's like, oh, so like your offense only works if Luka Doncic or James Harden is running it. That's not a good offense. That just means that like you have a great offensive player and
Yeah,
you've
no.
built a structure that like gives them the space and the to operate effectively. But that's not like a good or creative offense. So
It's
that's to
kind of
me the development I really want to see.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with. I always thought about D'Antoni, where it's like, oh well, D'Antoni he'll give you an 120 point per game offense if he's just got an elite ball handler. Like, bro, I could tell James Harden like, okay, you do whatever you want, and Capella, you run a pick and roll. I'm sure you know how to do that. Everybody else stand and shoot if you get the ball. Like I can orchestrate that. Like that doesn't require a basketball genius. That's just like that's just how I play 2K, And
Yeah.
so Silas's system is not that much more sophisticated. So yeah,
Yeah, but at least D'Antoni got like Raymond Felton like some All-Star votes one season when he was running
yeah,
point
yeah,
in New York.
yeah.
He's a little bit better at it. But yeah,
Let's bring it
and
home, man.
yeah. Okay. This was the first 2022-2023 Rockets Roundup brought to you by Above the Break. We're an NBA podcast, but we're going to be doing some Rockets exclusive podcasts. So if you like our Rockets content, you can get all of that type of content just from around the league. So when you watch the Rockets play a team, you'll be like, man, Above the Break, they let me know. They let me know that this dude is for real. Like he's having a good season. This is why. Or they'll just keep making fun of Doc Rivers. Because that is going to be my mission this season. Make fun of Doc Rivers. Anyways, we'll try to be back sometime later this week, maybe this weekend, for an NBA league wide podcast before we do another Rockets roundup. We're recording this on Monday, October 24th. So they'll be playing the Utah Jazz tonight. And then on Wednesday, they'll play the Utah Jazz again, but in Utah. So hopefully the Rockets can pull out a win tonight because this is their best chance to get a win for a while.
Yeah.
So you get a team like Utah on a back-to-back at home. Those are the games you need to win. We'll see if they don't pull it out. So I looked this up. 538 only has them favored once within their first 20 games to win the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not surprised
It's
by that.
basically a toss up. It's rough, but hang in there, Rockets fan. There's a lot to just enjoy Jalen Green going off. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll be back in who knows how long, hopefully a week or so. James, tell them about your article that you published because this is Rockets home.
Yeah, today I put out actually, it's kind of a funny story. This article is supposed to be should the Rockets stagger the backcourt. That was the original topic. I wrote about 75% of it. And then against the Bucks, they did stagger the backcourt. So I just modified it to should the Rockets does this backcourt work? Which really is kind of the guts of the question anyway. So I
Yeah.
just put that out for the Dream Shake. It's just a does Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green fit together piece. Conclusion, TBD, but probably not. Is basically where I get with the article. So, yeah,
I pretty much agree. If you want to check out any other Rockets related content, not at the Dream Shake, you can check out Space City Scoop. I write a bunch of stuff for them because I basically run the website along with Rob Leeds. One of my more recent articles was featured in Basketball Intelligence, which is a pretty good
oh yeah,
league-wide newsletter, and it was just about how Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green, as I alluded to earlier, aren't hitting shooters in the corner. There's some video breakdown, and I think it's pretty insightful. So if you like that, definitely head over there and check it out. We'll be back later. Peace.
Peace.